Hello there everybody and welcome to this third and final webinar from the Curious Piano Teachers in association with the London College of Music Exams. And in this particular webinar we are looking at the repertoire from the Popular Piano Syllabus for grades 7 and 8. And I'm delighted to be joined once again by Karen Marshall. Welcome to you, Karen. And today I'm also joined by Ben Norbury, and Ben is the Director of Exams. Lovely to see so many people here once again, and if you'd like to put into the chat where you are listening, joining us from, and it would be lovely to hear from you all. Find your chat, and if you've got any questions at any point, then please do add them to the chat. We'd love to hear from you. So what we're going to be doing today, as I say, this is the third and final part of our webinar series, where we're going to be looking at grades 7 to 8. And continue to share. And we're looking at the popular piano repertoire, where we have pieces that are absolutely guaranteed to motivate your students. We're joined by Ben Norbury from LCME Piano Exams. I'm going to hand over to him in a moment. And also by Karen Marshall, who was the advisor for the popular piano list and was one of the main people who put it all together. So I'm just going to hand over to Ben, and he's going to start by telling us a little bit about the exam system for LCME. Thank you, Ben.
I am. So, hello, everyone. So I'm going to share a slide, couple of slides that explains how our exams are put together. So I guess you're seeing a slide called syllabus structure. So you have two ways you can take your exam and two structures that your exam can take. So you can take your exam as a face-to-face exam in the traditional and we think preferred way, where your candidates, your students attend a centre which can be a public centre in your area, or can be a private centre, private visit, depending where you live. You can have an examiner come to you. Generally, if you've got, in the UK, half a day, in other parts of the world, about a day of exams. We're very happy, delighted to come to your own studio, and a lot of piano teachers who have a large practice get enough students together. And so, of course, we can come on the day that you want, not Christmas Day, and probably not the last weekend in June and the first weekend in July, because we're very busy elsewhere, but any other time of the year. So the way that the exams work is that there are two steps, which are pre-grade 1 exams, and then grades 1 to 8 in the kind of normal way. Not every instrument has two steps before grade 1, but piano and many other instruments do. So the face-to-face, the recorded way of entering is that you make a video of pieces and a selection of technical work and a discussion. The discussion is a fairly one-sided affair for the recorded exams, but we give you a list of questions and your students ask them, your students answer them in a prepared way, not reading off a script, please. And then the two forms of the exam you can take are these. There's the traditional format and the recital format. Traditional format is laid out like this: 15 marks for technical work, 3 pieces, discussion, and then a choice between sight reading or keyboard harmony, and then oral tests. The way that the pieces have been put together is that Group A pieces are generally called conversational in nature. So there is more emphasis on polyphony and more emphasis on part playing and voicing. Group B pieces are more dramatic and song-like in nature. So they're not all slow, but they all allow you to explore sound worlds. Group C pieces, games and dances is the overall heading, and they're more about movement and more about rhythm than they are about voicing and melodic playing. The discussion generally works in the same way as it's a kind of musicianship question. Begins very simply and develops over the grades into a discussion between the examiner and the candidate. And from about grade 5, we begin the questions with asking people what their favourite piece is, which is a great way in and very much intended to draw out what the candidate feels interested in themselves. We're not trying to catch people out. So we begin with kind of what note is that, and this is a bar line, and what do you call a stave, and things like that. But much as soon as possible, we try and get people talking about why they like the pieces that they're playing. Then the recital format has 2 versions within it. They're very similar. Either you play 5 pieces and get 20 marks each, or you play the version with supporting tests where you play 4 pieces and do one of the tests that is in the traditional exam. If you take your exam as a recorded version, then it's discussion, no argument about that, because that's the only test that goes in the recorded exam. So recital format can be 5 pieces or 4 pieces plus a discussion or another test. Then there are 2 sets of repertoire, as we've said. Standard repertoire, which is in our books and in our alternative lists. So there are books for each grade, and then listed alternatives. There are also piano anthologies. There's a lot to explore there. And there is also what we're talking about now, which is the popular piano list. So I'm not going to say any more about that. I'll just say one final thing about the rules of combination. So you can use any 2 for normal, traditional, standard exams. You can replace any 2 pieces from the syllabus with popular piano lists. So you must play at least 1 from the standard repertoire. If you're taking the recital grade, either the 5 or the 4-piece version, you can take any number of pieces from the list. But as I'm sure we'll go on to talk about, in the popular piano list, you have to use the edition that we ask for, because there are so many editions and there are so many arrangements floating around that you have to use the edition that we ask for, unless it's classical standard repertoire like Clair de Lune or Solfeggietto, where there are lots of editions floating around. You can use whichever one you want. So I'll stop that now and confirm that I've said everything I need to say.
Yeah, that was really, really useful, I think, to have all that background, Ben. And really good to know about the different lists and the different sort of emphasis that each one has. And I think that will probably help people to understand the choices behind that a lot more. And I think you've answered, Heidi had a question which was to do with, I think, the recorded exams and whether you could use keyboard harmony. And the answer is, by the sounds of it, no, you can only use the discussion for it. Is that correct?
Yep, for now. But we will definitely look at running exams in the Channel Islands.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Whoa, you heard it here first, Heidi.
Yep.
Please do, she says, yes. Okay. That's really helpful. So, Karen, over to you for a moment to just talk a little bit about this popular piano list more.
So the popular piano list it's not pop pieces, it's literally popular piano. i.e. pieces that our students will love, from film. There's quite a lot of film music in there. There's some music theatre in there. There's a lot of favourites like Fur Elise, Moonlight Sonata, The Pathétique, Clair de Lune. So it is about it being popular. And I, as a little girl, used to have pieces that I absolutely loved. Like what you say, Sally, I was running to the piano to actually practice them. And my vision was to create a syllabus that really motivated students to want to play, have a wonderful time, so the piano becomes a friend of theirs for the rest of their lives. And we're not thinking, oh, it's an exam piece, we're just thinking we love this music. And there was a lot of research done with LCM teachers as well, LCME teachers, so that there was lots of input of the collective of, what are these pieces that we use to keep students engaged and motivated. So that was the background behind that. In addition, it had to be well-written music. It had to be music that encouraged progression. It had to be music that was giving our students the skills to move forward in their piano playing as well.
And I think, you've achieved that very, very well across the whole of the syllabus, the whole of the popular piano. I've really enjoyed looking at it actually in preparation for this and discovering some of the delights. Some of them I know, some of them I don't know. And Karen's just said not only have they been chosen very carefully for their progressive qualities, but also to make sure that they motivate and inspire. And as I've said in the previous webinars, what is it that makes a piece inspiring? And I think there's a whole mixture of things that really do get our students hooked into the pieces. And it can sometimes just be a rhythmical sense of energy and buoyancy that just absolutely captures them. And I find quite often Baroque music can do that very, very well, especially if it has the odd sequence in there that you just go, oh, we like playing this, But the other thing is a melody, a gorgeous, gorgeous melody. And in this popular piano repertoire, there are lots of melodies. You'll hear today lots of melodies that are really well known. And that, I think, can go a long way. If people want to hear pieces and then think, I want to learn it, then that is absolutely the way forward. And I'm actually going to be playing later on, giving you the piece that most people would like to be able to play on the piano. Okay, through a recent poll that was done 2 or 3 years ago, the piece most people, the number one piece that most people would like to be able to play, it's on this list. You're going to hear it in a little bit. I might ask you just to put in some suggestions what you think it might be. Don't know. So the popular music that they know, music that they hear, and also music that is accessible in one way or another. Now, that might be accessible because they know it already. If they have it in their heads, then however black that page looks, usually you can find a way in. But you've got to be very careful as teachers not to overwhelm students with what's on the page. Remember, music is an oral art, so we want to help them engage their ears more, if anything, than their eyes. We want to go forward with that oral art all the time. So, Karen, I'm going to hand back over to you, and we're going to start exploring grade 7, I think.
Can I just share a tiny anecdote? Can I just share a tiny anecdote from 35 years ago or whenever? I was a recorder teacher and spending all day in music departments in various schools around London, 5-6 days a week, and spending a lot of time with young children saying, it's a B or it's an F natural normally. But there were always piano teachers around in the music departments, And for about 2 years, all I ever heard from the room next door was Intercity Stomp. And it's burned into my memory, especially the tiny gap between when people start and they're playing a fifth in the left hand, and then they have to move and across the bar line. So they play 8 times this dum da 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 dum da 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 dum da da move da dum, and you would just find yourself waiting for the pause while they locate the left hand move. But that's a really good example of how a very popular piece people will, like you said, run to the piano to start to play it, because these were not always people in their exams. You heard it at lunchtime, you heard it after school, you heard it in break. You know, can you play anything? What can you play? Play me a tune. And that was, for, like I said, a couple of years, the tune that people would play, because they'd learnt it for their exams, but they were playing it because they enjoyed it. And
Absolutely.
that's, I think, what we're looking for, really.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that, Ben. Right, Karen, over to
Okay.
you.
So, grade 7. Well, I'm starting with a piece by Satie, but I need to say it really doesn't sound very Satie-like. And I've done a little bit of research here, because we are on sort of grade 7 and 8, and somewhere I read that some people refer to these pieces as crooked dancers. So it's Danse de Travers by Eric Satie, and you've got to do 2 of them. So I'm going to give you snippets from number 2 and number 3, and they are very minimalistic in their style. So have a listen to this. There's no bar lines, there's no key signature, there's no Italian terms, there's no dynamics, so you can really get your student to be the editor. But there are these interesting little lines from Satie, as we've seen in some of his other pieces. So we start with Passa, go on. We then have the same. Then we have with the corner of the hand alone, be visible for movement, blend together, medium done. And then the third movement I'm going to show is says again and better and again. Anyway, let's have a listen. So, it's not very Satie-like, is it? But it's very minimalistic, and it's very, very meditative. And apparently Satie had this thing about, he called it furniture music. It was designed to colour the environment without grand emotional swells. And it was his reaction to what he felt at the time was this. It's written in 1897, and it's amongst these really melodramatic, romantic melodies. Now, it all seems very, very easy there, but it does get harder. And we've got these octaves coming in. There. And if you were going to get your student to do that, you've got the lovely sort of inner melodies, so you can take those on their own. Take that on its own, and then you piece it together. Now, I always have, well, it's only recently that I have realised the significance of this. I've done it instinctively, but to demonstrate it at a piece that the student is going to be able to practice, because often we'll demonstrate it. This has to be demonstrated extremely slowly, because the cognitive load on here is significant. So so you can hear sort of, we've got those octaves in there, and this is how the piece moves on. It's simple, then you've got the octaves in there. And the other thing about it is we can isolate that. We can also think, you know, where on earth is the harmony going, because we've got that many different sound worlds in there. So that is the second one, and the third movement, I'll just play you a tiny bit of this. It's very, very haunting, very unusual octaves here. Another melody sort of coming through there in the third part. So it's, as I say, I think furniture music is quite a nice thing to say about it. It's in the background, but it's very meditative. And isn't it fascinating, you know, that Satie is, you know, basically it's minimalistic music, isn't it, in 1897? So an interesting choice there. You've got to do two of them. It's from 1897. As I say, I have heard it referred to as crooked dancers, because there's loads of ties, there's loads of cross. The meter is very flowing, but you've got the right hand. I'll show you a bit of the music there. You can see it's interesting. It's interesting. So my next piece, myself and Sally were talking about how much we loved this book, weren't we? This is from Benny Anderson's piano. It's called Benny Anderson Piano, music from ABBA, Chess and More. And how it was done was he literally improvised his favourite melodies, and then a very clever person called Goran Arnberg actually transcribed the music. So you've got Benny Anderson improvising really on these melodies that he loves, and then he or she is transcribing it into a piece. Now, this piece is called Midnatstens. It has got like a Swedish folk sound to it, I'm told, and from my research. But it also has the energy of a dance, and it is written as a minuet, and it also does have sort of this lyricalness to it, but there is also sort of a bit of sort of staccato in there as well, because we've got these repeated notes, and I often imagine it as a violin playing over the top. So let's have a listen to this. Interesting performance from myself, the nerves hit in there. It's amazing how these things can happen, but I'm going to own it. So basically, you've got this lovely melody over the top. Okay, but you've got the voicing. Underneath, and that balance of the melody and the accompaniment. Of course, it gets harder. Those lovely sweeping left hand arpeggios. You've got some in the right hand as well. I'm going to talk about pedalling a little bit here. In this piece, I would highly advise you do some half pedaling as well, and actually in the Sati too. You know, it's got to have very judicious pedaling within the piece, and also you mustn't over pedal either. You know, if it's over pedaled, it's going to sound quite mushy. As well. So there are my 2 grade 7 pieces, Sally.
Yes, no, that was super to hear those 2. Thank you so much, Karen. And I think the idea about pedalling, so important to think about pedalling and to consider a variety of ways that you can pedal pieces, because of course every piano is different. Every acoustic is different, and actually you need to be ready with your pedal to adapt to any piano and any acoustic. So here we go with, I'm going to play 3 pieces from the grade 7 list. The first one, I think, like so many that I played yesterday, I think you'll recognise this, so I don't think I'm going to play too much of it, but... You got it, it's Solfeggetto by C.P.E. Bach. And this was written back in 1766. And, you know, I think one of the things that I really like about what Ben was saying about the exams is this discussion element. Because it's all too easy to learn a piece, to teach a piece to your students, but the students don't know anything about it at all. And actually, they should, otherwise they won't be able to play it, interpret it, own it. They need to take ownership of it. So why is it important to know 1766? Well, this piano, the grand piano, just wasn't around in those days. The piano that it would have been played on was a very early piano. Probably more harpsichord than piano. And with a very light action on it. So the way that the performances went in those days when they were doing training on technique, it was all finger-based. It was all literally, I know some people, you know, just you had to keep a very still body and it was just your fingers go. Today, we know that that is not a healthy approach at all, that today we need to use the whole body. And exactly the same here, but we still need that lightness, that sparkle of touch that you could hear, hopefully, in some of my performance. So what we don't want is we just want that almost detached but not quite detached approach when you're teaching this. And can you use pedal? I did use a little bit of pedal. Did you notice? Just but again, it's just tiny little dabs. That's all. So C.P.E. Bach, it's a little study, solfeggetto, and of course the study is all about scales and arpeggios. And it can't, you know, I wouldn't go too fast with it. You know, students do love to just go, but then they lose the whole poise of the movement and following the harmonic progression that goes on in there. So that's the first of my pieces to share with you, solfeggetto. And that's available, of course, in many copies and editions. So the next piece is a piece by a female composer, Francisca Gonzaga. And this is in this very wonderful book, Her Story, which, of course, Karen is responsible for putting together. And, do you know, I really love this book. And what I love about it is the way that Karen has told us something about the composer on with each piece. For example, we can see that she wrote 30 tangos here, and that she was from she was from Brazil or somewhere like that. But that's yes, Brazil, I think. And this is my favourite book. If I want to give a student a little, well done, present piece of music, I tend to give them her story because I think it's so special and unique. So this piece, Sospiro, Sigh, by Francisca Gonzaga, sounds like this. Isn't it gorgeous? Of course, this isn't a modern day tango. This is a tango from the turn of the century. Quite delicate, really, in some ways here. And one of the skills that we need here is not only crisp rhythms, but that confident left hand moving around. Yeah, and finding those bass notes all the time, which is fine when it's by itself, but put the right hand over the top and then it all becomes a little bit more, ooh, what's happening in the middle. It's got, I think, an A-B-C-A kind of structure. So the middle section, which has got some lovely chromatic colour. This little bit that goes up. And then it has probably a C section, changes key. Doesn't that sound so sweet? Etc, etc. And then we're back to the very lovely piece, and just really got that energy and that charm, I think, and lyricism that appeals to many of our students. So that was Sospiro, or Sigh, by Francisca Gonzaga. And then the next piece is Dawn, from the film Pride and Prejudice, and this is by Dario Marianelli, I think. And interestingly, I have an adult student who found this piece and started to learn it back in the summer term. And yeah, it's really lovely. Very good for 2s against 3s or 3s against 2s, because you have to do both. And if you picture the scene of Dawn, think Pride and Prejudice, yeah, Dawn. So we start with a very still. Twos in the left hand, and then it changes, which at grade 7 level, we've got to start introducing our students to that technical little way of doing things. And then the next section, interesting, my student, when they brought this to me, they couldn't work this seconds bit out, because what it looks like is this. It says moderately fast with motion, and if I just play it, yeah, but in that is the accompaniment, a melody and a bass line, and you've got to imagine that mist again, bit of pedal just to get it going. And shaping the phrase. Oh, isn't that just great? Yeah, it's super. And then on following on from that, the hardest bit is in the sort of the third section, lots of arpeggios. But there are arpeggios that never quite go the same way as each other. So really look at the fingering and get some really workable fingering in there, I would suggest. But I just think that's a very super piece, Dawn from Pride and Prejudice by Dario Marianelli. There we go. 2s against 3s in particular is good for. So that's our grade 7 choices, and I'm going to hand back now to Karen to bring us on to our grade 8 choices. Karen.
Yeah, so I've picked 2 pieces here. One of them, I had a student play just because they totally loved it. They'd done a Metamorphosis 1, I think, for a grade 6 examination. And then they went on to this one, and it's very deceiving because to begin with, you think, oh, this is, quite easy and this is great. And then it actually does sort of open up quite significantly to some very challenging things. And the other thing about it is it basically it's very, very exposed. And also there's an opportunity in several places to play it quite badly, particularly with the inner melodies, and you've got a repeated thumb on the C that if it isn't handled well will just bash through, and it can't do that. So Metamorphosis 2 by Philip Glass, it's minimalistic. As I say, I find that students absolutely love this. Okay. So we get the idea and we're thinking, oh, no problem at all, and we're happily going along. And then you finish that first section and you've ensured that you've got that beautiful delicacy in the left hand, and then this arrives. And you think, oh yes, that's grade 8. And it doesn't get any kinder. And what I want to talk about here is the need for that flat rotary movements. If you don't get your student to do that, they'll injure themselves, potentially. We've got to make sure that they're able to because they've got to move rapidly. That wrist has to move absolutely rapidly. Again, you've got no dynamic markings in there. Your student, apart from an MP at the beginning and cantabile, it's your student needs to put some in. There's an MF in that section, but there's so much more that your student needs to put in this score. And I also think that's that feeling of anticipation with those octaves. And sort of drawing sort of the listener in all of the time. Pedalling, it can't be muddy. You know, make sure lots of half pedalling in there as well. And also we do need basically a bit of rubato, but it can't be elastic. So, you know, just a little bit in there as well. So that is Metamorphosis 2 by Philip Glass. And my final grade 8 one here is, I did this one for my licentiate diploma. It was the grade 8 piece that I used in my licentiate diploma when I was being observed and while I was teaching and performing as well. And Duetto by Mendelssohn really is very special. It's basically that multi-layered voicing, so there's vocal shaping, but also you've got to have a lot of holistic musicianship in there because of all the key changes. And I often think that it's like romantic polyphony without requiring the complexity of Liszt. So it's a really nice way in offering a quick win, so you can develop some confidence in technique. And it also does a lot of work on arm weight distribution as well, and bringing out those hidden melodies. Now, I really need to focus in because with my dyslexia, I can find it difficult to switch keys at some point. So I'm going into A flat major. So I need to get this into my mind. So we have duetto here. So think of it as a duet between a soprano and a baritone, and see if you can hear that baritone coming in. So there your baritone enters into the duet. So how are you going to tackle it? Well, a lot of work on those whispering inner melodies. And I also do quite a lot of work on actually putting the bass and the soprano together and missing out those middle melodies so they can really, my students can really identify the sound we're going for. So very useful little exercise there, and obviously you can sort of match up other parts of it as well. I think I need to talk about you know, you're stripping away. That's the first thing I've got on my list, isolating and looking at the different sound maps. The other thing is also thinking about that cognitive load. For some students, I have actually highlighted the different parts for them. So, and then, as I say, practice them separately. And also the use of arm weight. To prevent that harshness of tone. We've got to get that independence of the fingers going on, and also oral monitoring of the pedalling. You know, what are we going to do to make sure that we haven't got that really blurry sound? Now, I'm conscious of time, so I'm going to hand back to you, Sally. You've got 3 to do, haven't you?
I have indeed. But no, that is a gorgeous piece, and I'm sure everybody could hear so clearly where the where the tenor line, the baritone line, came in there, Karen. It's just gorgeous, gorgeous. Okay, so we're on to last 3, including the most popular piece people would like to play, but not yet. 1 to go. So the first piece that I've got here is a piece by Francois Couperin. So this is a French Baroque piece, and it's Les Barricades Mystérieuses. Now, nobody quite knows what these mysterious barricades refer to. One adult who learned this, that I worked with for some time, did a bit of research, and it could be that it was to do with the masks that people used to wear at the French courts, yeah, and that these are the barricades, the mysterious barricades, in other words, hiding you from other people. Let me just play the beginning of this for you. Beginning, I have to say, I find is one of the hardest bits of the piece, because it starts on the second quaver of the bar, and the tonic doesn't come till the first beat of the next bar. So let's see if I can get this in my head first. Does that ring a bell? If you ever listen to Classic FM, you'll have heard that, because it frequently appears. And it's a fantastic piece of music, it really is, which is why it is so popular and absolutely worthy of a place on the grade 8 list. It's a rondo, so that section that I've just played keeps coming back, and then it's interspersed with couplets. So one of the things to help your student get into this, because this is one of these, I don't know about Les Barricades Mystérieuses, it can look a little impenetrable on the page. In other words, where's the melody? Where am I going? What is the structure of this piece? So it's another piece, like Karen was just talking about, colour coding. Colour coding is definitely something you could do with this particular piece of music. So you can see the different sections, and they really, really help the student to understand what it is that's going on. Underpinning it is harmony. And it's a wonderful way of helping your students to really understand harmony. Modulations happen, chromatic notes happen, sequences happen. And that is what powers this music on. So when you get to the first couplet, for example, we've got this. Again, yeah. The left hand absolutely powers this piece. Hang on to the left hand, make your right hand fit over the top. So if you listen, I've got 2 lines in my left hand, so very good for part playing here. Something I might get my students to do is to write it out themselves, and I get them to write that left hand part on 2 staves, so they can clearly see, here's the bass line, maybe they can sing it, some musicianship going on here with a modulation down there, so it starts in B flat major and then ends up with a lovely perfect cadence. Another other idea for helping them to kind of find their way in is to do exactly what I did then, and that is just to play the chords that you find. Yeah, as you go through. These are all details that you can work on over time. It does take a bit of time to find your way into this piece, it really does. Because it's in, I haven't said what book it's in the Advanced Pianist Book 2. And it takes up 3 pages in that. And it's all written out for you, all the couplets and all the repeats, etc., etc. Because I know in some editions it's not always quite so obvious. But just a truly wonderful piece. So now we have reached the moment where we're going to be playing, I'm going to play the piece most people would like to be able to play. I wonder if you guessed what it is. It has to be, doesn't it? Bohemian Rhapsody by Queen, by Freddie Mercury actually. And this is a gorgeous arrangement by the king of arrangers, I think, for this sort of material. And this is about Philip Keverin. And this particular book from the series, he's got so many different series. This is Queen for classical piano, and 15 of their best hits. It's really a very super book. And of course, Bohemian Rhapsody, if you imagine all the Queen actually playing it, it's a big piece full of emotion, full of drama, and he's captured that brilliantly, I think, with the way his arrangement that he's done. It's tricky. It's tricky. I've been practicing very hard, I have to say. And I love the changes that you have to go through, but with a student, you know, you're going to have to take time for them to really get to grips with this. It has some really fancy passages. I'll just play you a little bit more of it, because I've done the practice, so I'm going to play it for you. It's really, really fun. And it has all these... So he gets that feeling of the drum going on, you know. And then as it goes on, lots of rhythmic detail needed here. There's lots of pedalling added in that you need to do really, really carefully. And lots of very, very dramatic moments. Some quite awkward moments as well. This little bit, for example. Of course, what do we all do, like I just did? We sing along with it as well. You can't help but do that, can you? But this is a bit awkward where it goes... Going from one to another, it takes a little bit of work, especially at the right speed. But then, just listen to... This is absolutely why people want to learn this piece, because it's a brilliant piece of music. These chords... Get your student to analyse those. Just get them to work out. We go from B minor, A major, D major, D flat major, G flat major, B flat major, E flat major. Just superb stuff. I I know we need to wrap up in a minute, but I've just got to keep playing this a little bit more. We then come to the end. We have all sorts of... such fun. And then we have a little bit of Tchaikovsky, I think, here. Let's see if I can bring this together. I hope you're enjoying that as much as I've enjoyed that. Queen, Bohemian Rhapsody, the piece people would like to play the most on the piano, so get it out for your students. And the final piece I'm going to play, which I said to Karen, I've simply got to play this, having done these 3 webinars. And again, it's from the Benny Anderson book. And this is Thank You for the Music. Thank You for the Music. And I'd forgotten that fact, Karen, that he played these, he improvised them and somebody else wrote them down. And that accounts for when we get to there's a bit of an introduction, and then when we get to the actual melody, I'm not going to say much about this because we have got a couple of other things to do. I just want to play you a little bit of this because it says music hall, and you've got a bit of a stride bass going on here that you've got to get sorted out. So big hands needed for this, but a very lovely piece. Let's all sing together. I share the same sentiment. Karen, we share my sentiment, but thank you for the music. Music's such a wonderful thing. And thank you all out there for sitting and being with us over the last 3 webinars, because Karen and I have had a ball. So I'm just going to hand back to Ben, because I know, Ben, you've got a kind of a bit of a final thing. I'm cutting the sequence short here a little bit, but over to Ben, hopefully.
Okay. Well, yes, I completely echo everything. Thank you both for playing. Brilliant view of some of the highlights, of which there are many. I'd like to, I've got something to play you, but I don't know whether, Carrie, you want to include this as part of the case study, or should we just go straight into...
Well, we can, I can explain. So basically, I've got a student, she's doing a grade 8, and she's doing one piece, which Ben is going to show you now, from the album. And her other 2 pieces are from the popular piano list. So she's doing Clair de Lune, and she's doing the 2nd movement of Beethoven's Pathétique. So we've got some wonderful Debussy in there, but also a movement from a sonata. And the piece that she picked, which she has been playing at school and gets quite a reaction, is a prelude and fugue on the theme of Peppa Pig. So Ben is just going to show you the composer here, just playing a small excerpt from this.
I am, and then afterwards I'm going to put a link in the chat to a really interesting interview which we did with Paul, who's the arranger, because it's fascinating to listen to him talking about how he's put this bit of music together. But what I will do is just at the moment play you the the first bit. I'll just play you the first kind of page or so. And off we go. Okay, so I played the prelude. So we heard, like Sally was talking about, a few sequences, a minor version, a subdominant, a dominant version, coming back to the tonic. So very kind of classical, and a very classical Bach-y kind of approach. That sounds almost like a two-part invention. And then at the end, there's the uh-oh bit with the tritone, which comes in whenever anything goes wrong in Peppa Pig. Uh-oh. And that keeps coming back, and there's a really interesting kind of journey of those two ideas, the straightforward walky theme and the tritone. And then there's an adagio where these two ideas kind of drift apart in a really interesting way and end up with whole tone scales and things. And then at the end, there's a fugue that draws everything together. But the uh-oh idea is right in there all the way through. So I will, like I said, I'll find the link and pop the link in the chat to Paul talking about the piece and why he arranged it. But I will also just mention quickly that I've heard from lots of piano teachers that they found that their students are finding all kinds of ways to integrate these two sets of music, so that they play things that they know and they've always wanted to learn at all grades, but also are finding new things that are exciting new discoveries for them. So back to Sally.
Okay, yeah, it's so important, that balance between things that they really, really want to learn and that they've heard around them, and also just balancing it up, because I think we can lead them into all sorts of wonderful places with music that they might immediately go, no, no, I don't like that. It's up to us to lead them. Karen, your thoughts on that?
Yes, I think the other thing to say about with Peppa Pig, we've got to remember a student that's doing their grade 8 grew up with that on their television as a child. And I think that's the other thing. It's whether students can identify with things. Certainly the Bohemian Rhapsody, they can identify with that. But also they're identifying with the Fur Elise on the syllabus. They're identifying with we've got the Moonlight Sonata in grade 7 as well. And so it is about sort of thinking, okay, where is our student? If they were at lunchtime in their secondary school, playing at lunchtime, what are their friends going to want to hear as well? And I think that's great, isn't it? The piano can bring people together. So thank you, Sally, on your playing. I loved hearing that. I'm going to have to learn some of that music. I'm glad it was you playing it and not me. You did a brilliant job.
Yes, I can see Alison has loved the Bohemian Rhapsody as well, and she's going to go off. She's already got the book. Very good. Have a good look at it, because it's a great book with great arrangements. Well, I'm just going to say a huge thank you to everybody who's come. I don't know if there's anybody out there who's made it to all 3 webinars, but if you have a gold star. And a big thank you to Ben. It's lovely that you were able to join us today, Ben. But a really huge, biggest thank you of all to the very wonderful Karen Marshall, who in the background looks after piano teachers so very carefully and so very well. Karen, we do owe you a huge debt of gratitude. We really do. Thank you.
No, thank you. And I also want to say to piano teachers, thank you for all that you do, because I had my teacher that I did my diplomas with said that a piano teacher is like a service to the community, and I really believe that.
Absolutely.
We play a really vital role, and you know, I can't take full credit for this syllabus. There's so many teachers that have sort of mentioned repertoire, and we really are so powerful together, aren't we, Sally? Sharing ideas, working together, just to have that special time with a student every week, and to actually help them have a lovely friend in their life. You know, the piano really is such a wonderful friend. It certainly is. So yeah, I've had a it's a real privilege to be able to put together the syllabus for LCME, you know, and I just hope that students really enjoy it, and teachers love teaching it as well.
Yeah, and on behalf of LCME, you know, I would really like to thank Karen and all the other people who've been involved in this, because I think individually the albums are great. The popular piano list is amazing. When you put the two together, it's a really fantastic set of material. And what you notice if you play through as much as you can get hold of the popular piano syllabus is that it's a kind of catalogue of the different sorts of styles of piano playing that over your career you would end up kind of using as a working or a living pianist. You know, there's like Sally talked about, there's stride piano, there's different kinds of voicing. There are lots and lots of styles that there are lots of directions that somebody could take, and putting that together with the idea of the piano teacher as a service to the community, or at least a service to their individual students, where you build a relationship over several years, almost always, as long as people don't stop, and hopefully the syllabus will encourage them not to stop, then people will come out the other end with all sorts of, I think, very useful piano skills that will benefit them right through the rest of their lives, we hope.
Yeah. Have we got a PDF, Sally, of the syllabus?
Yes, I shared that earlier. Yeah, no, I did share that earlier. Yeah. I just want to finish with going back to that idea that Karen said that, you know, piano teachers, we do matter. We absolutely matter. And do not underestimate your worth and your value to your students, to the parents, to your community, and to this wider community that we are in. And I know it's been delightful to have so many curious piano teachers with us, and it's one thing I think together we have much more of a voice than we do individually. So if you're interested in the Curious Piano Teachers, then just go and have a look at our website. Do feel free to get in touch at any point. It has been a real delight to be doing this this series of webinars in association with LCME, and we hope you've all enjoyed it and found them useful and get inspired, so you can go off and inspire your students as we step into the new term. Thank you all so very much. Hope to see you soon. Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.